Hello, and welcome everyone. I'm really happy to be here. This is my third time presenting at the Stanford Tibetan Medicine Conference. Youngjun keeps inviting me back, which I'm very happy for. And it's really nice to see a community growing. I feel like we're becoming kind of like a family where we see each other, so many people each year, and so it's a wonderful function of this conference. And is anyone here today for the first time? Oh, wow, all here for the first time. Okay, welcome. And how many people are new to Tibetan medicine, that they haven't heard Tibetan medicine before? Okay. And how many people have had some exposure to Tibetan medicine? Okay, great, thank you. Well, for all you new people, this is especially for you. And it's a Tibetan Medicine 101, so introduction to fundamental principles of Tibetan medicine. And I just wanted to acknowledge, my other kind of friends and colleagues and mentors and teachers and doctors in the audience who know much more than me. And so this is almost like becoming like a little mini annual oral exam for me to see how I'm doing and progressing in my own studies of Tibetan medicine. Many of my teachers are here in the audience, so I'm very grateful. And I know some people have come from a long distance. Some people have come from India and Tibet. So a special welcome to you all. So I'm going to be talking for the first 15 minutes or so, and then we'll have a little discussion and then turn it over to Dr. Tashi Dorjee, who will do the second half of our presentation today. So in my presentation, I wanted to provide a little introduction to the origins and the history of Tibetan medicine, so we have a little context of where it comes from. And then spend some time talking about some basic principles of theories of health and disease that will kind of inform your understanding and make the rest of our time together more rich, I believe. I'll talk about some diagnosis techniques, and then also we'll talk more about the self-assessment, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Tashi Dorjee, who will spend more time talking about diet and lifestyle treatments in Tibetan medicine. Okay. So you all are filling out the self-assessment, so thank you very much. And we'll come back to it about midway through this presentation. So in order to talk about Tibetan medicine per se, I think it's really important that we put up a map here so we can locate where Tibet is on a map in relationship to other countries. Because Tibet was relatively isolated in the high Himalayan mountains. However, there was exposure with their neighbors. There was a lot of cultural exchange and communication that happened over the centuries. And this is a map here of the Silk Roads from a couple of 1,000 years ago. So you can see that Tibet was part of a network of of roads that stretched from Europe and Egypt through Persia, India, all the way to China. And so Tibet was part of this kind of global conversation, if you will, exchanging ideas, material goods, and medical information. One of the key events in the development of Tibetan medicine is often cited in the 8th century when a famous king, King Songtsen Gampo, I believe, he convened an integrative medicine conference in the 8th century. So we often think of integrative medicine as a new term, right? A modern term of bringing ancient traditions and modern medicine together. At this conference, they were considering themselves to be very integrative in bringing together great medical doctors from various traditions around the world. And so what were those traditions? Any ideas? Ayurveda? Yeah, great. Chinese medicine? Great. Any others? Persian, yes. Okay, great. Okay, and last but not least, the indigenous traditions of Tibet, known as the Tibetan Bön tradition. And so you've got the Indian, Ayurvedic, Chinese, and then Persia was also heavily influenced by ancient Greek medicine.
Sorry, there was also utopian Menpa in the 8th century.
Yeah, so so there's senior, yeah, so Utok, yeah, so he was involved in the senior, and I'm gonna, so Utok here is in he...
12th century, because the first one was in the 8th century.
Yes, the senior one was in the 8th century, and his later incarnation is the 12th century.
Yes.
And he is credited for compiling the main Tibetan medicine text that's still in use today. And it's known as the Four Medical Tantras, or the Gyushi in Tibetan. Yes. Thank you. And so, interestingly, this was translated into English in 2008. So that's relatively recent. You know, so it's kind of an exciting time to be on the front lines, to see this great ocean of Tibetan medicine crashing on the shores of America, or the West, if you will. So Tibetan medicine is also sometimes referred to as Sowa Rigpa. Sowa Rigpa refers to a family of medicine across the Himalayan region. It can include traditional medicine in India, Mongolia, as well as Tibet. I'm sorry? And Nepal, thank you. Yes. So we can say the words together so that we can get used to saying them. So you can repeat after me. Sowa. Rigpa. Sowa Rigpa. Okay, great. So what does it mean? So there's some translations here. Sowa means to heal or to nourish, and Rigpa means knowledge, science, or awareness. And so a study with Dr. Nida here, and these are his translations of Sowa Rigpa as the science of healing or nourishing awareness, which has more of a spiritual connotation to it. And recently, I just saw Dr. Nida, and he was saying, actually, I think we should refer to Sowa Rigpa as the science of health and happiness, because us Americans are so unhappy. We really need to get the happiness in there, that this medical tradition applies to our psychological well-being as well. So why is Tibetan medicine relevant to us today, right? This is the $60,000 question. We can look at our lifestyle, right? Okay. You know, 100 years ago in the US, we were dying from things like due to microorganisms like bacteria and viruses. Western medicine has really improved our mortality in the last 100 years. However, most of the chronic diseases and causes of death these days, such as heart disease and cancer, are due to our lifestyle, okay? Due to feeling overworked, stressed, not being able to sleep, our poor diet, you know, our addiction to drugs, etc. So there's a lot that we can do to intervene to keep us healthy and for the long term. However, we've been having a hard time doing that, I believe, just relying on what the current Western medicine tradition is like these days. So some benefits of Tibetan medicine for us today, I think, is kind of a return to natural medicine. Yeah, question?
Yeah, you show the picture of the book, but there's also these series of medical images that seem important for the presentation of the tradition. I don't know what you say about that.
Oh yeah, sure. I'll be showing them. Oh, okay, yeah. I'll show one. I'll give an explanation of one of them in just a minute. But thanks for saying that. So, in addition to the text that, you know, the primary text that was written in like the 12th century, in the 17th century, the Tibetan government commissioned a series of medical paintings to depict the information in the text. And so some of the photos that you see here are from those medical paintings. So here we see some plants that are being identified in the text. And I liked this one because it reminded me of the importance of natural medicine, right? Going back to the plants. And so kind of a return to nature, feeling our connection to nature, I think is a healing component that Tibetan medicine has to offer. And also its personalized approach to care. So you're filling out the survey now that's asking you questions about you, your individual constitution. And I was really excited when I heard that this was a theme of the conference, because I feel like this is one of the most valuable things that Tibetan medicine can offer us in Western medicine right now, is a more of an individualized approach to our treatment. Western medicine is really a population-based medical system based on randomized controlled trials and looking at populations on average. So I think this is a value contribution that Tibetan medicine can make, and also that it empowers individuals to learn basic principles that they can apply throughout their lives. Also, the doctor-patient relationship is crucial to the healing process, and many patients today report not feeling seen or heard, kind of dismissed by their physicians, and Tibetan medicine recognizes this as a crucial factor in developing a relationship to facilitate the healing process. And then finally, Tibetan medicine offers a holistic approach where we're looking at all aspects of a person's life as a cause of disease or a potential form of medicine. One of the unique aspects of Tibetan medicine, I will say, is its underlying Buddhist philosophy that informs its theory about the causes of disease, treatment, and maintenance of health. Traditionally, monks in the monasteries were trained as physicians. So we have this kind of integration of the spiritual and the medical. And as one trains to be a doctor, they're told that your practice as a physician is your spiritual practice. It's your path to your own awakening, to your own enlightenment. And so this is an interesting idea in the age where so many Western doctors suffer from burnout. Okay. So just to give you an example, excuse me, of a Buddhist philosophical impact on Tibetan medicine is their view of the ultimate cause of disease. And this has to do with our, from a spiritual perspective, in terms of our fundamental understanding of ourselves, our experience, and reality in general. And deep misperceptions about a sense of kind of separateness between ourselves and others or the world is the fundamental cause of disease. This sets in motion, disrupts the flow of vital energies in the body, that you could say. And these are referred to as the three mental poisons: desire and attachment as one, anger and hatred as the second, and confusion or ignorance as the third. So three fundamental ways of relating to something that's separate from you, right? You can either want it, or not want it, or not know about it, right? So we could kind of feel this out, with our modern psychological, complexities, and come up with a lot more emotions. But this is how Buddhist philosophy distills all those emotions into three basic types. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the theories of health and disease. So as someone was interested in the paintings, this is the tree of health and disease. And the trunk on the left is the tree of health, and this is the tree of disease. So we're going to spend our time talking about some of these branches and leaves on this trunk. Okay? Okay, so what is health and disease? So health is a state of balance, disease a state of imbalance, and treatment rebalancing. So what are we trying to balance or rebalance. Okay, our basic life energy, which has 5 qualities. Okay, and these are known, traditionally we speak of them in English as the 5 elements, as 5 basic qualities of nature. All ancient traditions have some version of an elemental theory of nature or spirituality, and so these are the 5 elements in the Tibetan tradition: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And so they're more than just physical elements that we can touch and see. They're actually referring to principles of energy, functions of energy, we could say. So the principle of earth is stability and structure, and we can find that in our body in terms of bones. The principle of water is cohesion or moisture. We can find that in our body as well in terms of blood or body fluids. The principle of fire is transformation, such as digestion, metabolism. The principle of air is movement, such as the movement of our breath in and out of our bodies. The last element is the element of space, which is considered to be all-pervasive, which allows these other 4 elements to function. And so these elements are found not just in our physical bodies or in nature, but in all aspects of phenomena. We can look at any aspect of phenomena and look at them in terms of the 5 elements. So our body, our mind, we can talk about how the 5 elements operate in our mind. Our diet, we can look at our food in terms of the 5 elements. Our lifestyle, our physical environment, the seasons, okay? And even wisdom can be described in terms of the 5 elements. So the 5 elements manifest in our body as the 3 nyepas. Can you say the word nyepa? Nyepa. Okay. So these are key principles that we'll be referring to for the rest of our presentation. So a nyepa in general is this vital energy in our body and mind that maintains our homeostasis. Okay. So we can think of them as these 3 active principles that are functioning in our mind and body to create harmony. Yet they can get out of balance. So the first one is Loong, which is the principle of air. Can you say Loong? Okay. The second one is Tripa, which is the principle of fire, to ripen or transform. And the last one is a combination of earth and water. And this is known as becken. Say becken? Okay, great. And that's to nourish or stabilize. So we have Loong, Tripa, and becken. You can say Loong, Tripa, becken. Okay, you got it. Okay, so these, I'm just going to list these qualities here. So the quality of Loong has these qualities. You can think of qualities of air, right? It's light, it's moving, it's dry, it's rough, it's hard, it's cool, it's subtle. Okay, so this is how we start to understand nature, through these qualities, through our direct experience. Okay, we're not looking at looking at life through microscopes. We're feeling it, right? We're experiencing it. Okay, so Loong in the body governs circulation, respiration, muscle, urinary, bowel movements, the nervous system, and thought. The fire principle, okay, qualities of hot, oily, sharp, light, smelly, liquid, and purgative. Okay, governing metabolism, digestion, our temperature, the liver function, and skin complexion. Becken, qualities of cold, heavy, oily, stable, sticky, smooth, blunt, governing the physical structure of the body, the joints, providing moisture and lubrication, smooth skin, and helping us to go to sleep at night. So these 3 basic principles, what's interesting is that all of us have them, otherwise we wouldn't be alive right now, but we have them to varying degrees. Some of us may have more Loong, some of us may have more Tripa, some of us may have more becken, and this is what makes us individual. Some of us may have certain combinations of some of us may primarily be a single type of constitution. Some of us may have like a double, maybe roughly equal amounts of Loong and Tripa compared to Becken, okay, etc. And some people might be evenly balanced, Loong, Tripa, Becken, though I'm told this type is relatively rare. Okay. So just to look at the body types. People who tend to be more Loong, Tripa, Becken, what's something that you notice just in the body type? Right? Loong people, yeah. Loong people more skinnier, right? More angular, pointy, leaner, weaker muscles. They might have drier skin. In contrast to Becken, right? More sturdy, substantial, more mass, right? More earth and water, maybe softer, okay? In Tripa, somewhere kind of in the middle, muscular, kind of medium-sized. Okay, so there's this list of characteristics then when we look at the three basic types of Loong, Tripa, Becken. So psychologically, Loong helps us to be creative and imaginative. It allows us to be sensitive emotionally or physically to our environment, okay, open to new experiences. But in excess, Loong, wind energy in excess, okay, right? Okay, has anyone experienced anything like that before? Too much wind, too much movement, we become fearful and anxious, emotionally unstable, okay? Hard to concentrate, right? Hard to settle down. And so in excess, we might experience these kinds of physical symptoms, okay? Irregular eating and sleeping patterns, poor circulation, digestion is up and down, okay? Dry skin, constipated, insomnia, we can't sleep. And some Western medical diseases that may have a strong Loong component to them. Anxiety, neurological disorders, heart conditions, etc. Okay, and same with Tripa. We can talk about Tripa psychologically, the characteristics of strong Tripa types. They might be very sharp and intelligent and analytical. They're good speakers, they're ambitious, they're leaders, right? They're strong, but too much, right? If that fire gets out of control and starts raging, okay, you'll know. Okay, they'll be angry, they're competitive, they'll be irritable, okay? They might have fast metabolism, so they're graying early, right? They're maybe aging early, okay? And some physical symptoms are listed here. So these are different symptoms that doctors are observing. Diseases that have a strong Tripa component, such as fever, inflammation, acid reflux, digestive disorders, and liver disorders. Okay, and finally Becken. Becken, okay, these are the earth and water types. Okay, we might have kind of a balance, a little marshy there, or we might get flooded, right, with lots of too much water, or maybe too much earth. So psychologically, these people are stable. They're calm and relaxing, average intelligence, okay? They tend to be a little lazy, laid back, okay, conforming, okay? So they're slower, so their digestion is slower, okay? They can sleep well, okay? Again, their blood circulation might be slow and they might feel cold. So diseases like obesity, type 2 diabetes, tumors or cysts, edema, etc., have a strong Becken component. Okay. Recently, some genetic correlates of the three Nyepas, or in Sanskrit, the three Doshas, have been identified, which is interesting. So we're starting to link these profiles to our genetic makeup. And just a moment for diagnostic techniques. The physician is looking visually, does an assessment of the sense organs and the tongue and pulse and urine in particular to diagnose a disease or constitution. They'll feel their pulse. It's a very sophisticated pulse system, 12 different pulses for the different organs in the body. And then they'll interview them. And so they might find out what their basic constitution is and what their main disease is. But they're also looking at all of these other factors in context. So they're not just looking at your basic constitution, but they're looking at where you live, what season it is, how old you are, your habitual diet, lifestyle, etc. So they're looking at a lot of aspects of your life. Yeah?
Is this diagnostic system based like on Aggravating by Doshas? So it's like things about.
Yeah, there's a lot of similar overlap, at least superficially, but once you get down into the details, there might be some variation. But in general, we can say, yeah, there's a lot of similarity, if you're familiar with that system. There's 4 main treatment types. So a treatment plan might consist of changes in your diet, your lifestyle, internal medicines like herbal medicines, and a range of external therapies listed here. And again, these each have to be tailored. Okay, so that's a quick overview, and I've gone over time a little bit, but I wanted now to come back to the self-assessment that you guys have just filled out, because that was actually asking you to evaluate to what extent you have Loong, Tripa, or Becken energies in your own system, right? And this scale has been validated. Is Miriam here? Hi, Miriam. Okay, so Miriam in the back, if you can just raise your hand, Miriam. Miriam's the one actually who created this survey. Welcome, from University of Minnesota. And she did some preliminary validation work on it and compared people filling this out to a doctor. And there was a 51% and 76% overlap across 2 studies. So I think this measure has real potential, and I think it's still in the process of being refined, or could be, more research could be done on this. So in pairs now, for a couple minutes, I wanted you guys to talk with your neighbor to see if you can identify what you think your dominant nyepa may be from the self-assessment, knowing that you would definitely need to go get diagnosed by a doctor for a better understanding. So this is kind of a rough understanding to give you some idea of these concepts. But let's take just a couple minutes to look over and have a chance to talk about the self-assessment, see if you can identify your nyepa, and if there's any questions that come up. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back together. So I'm just curious, how, with a show of hands, how many people felt they might be a Loong dominant from filling out? Okay, great, thank you. How about Tripa dominant? Ah, okay. Becken dominant? Okay. And how many people felt they were a combination of some type of combination? Okay, great. Okay, so you feel you have some understanding of how the theory is working a little bit? Okay, great. So again, we'll have more time to talk about it over lunch. And I thought I'd just share with you, I teach a Tibetan Medicine and Buddhism course at San Francisco State University, and I gave this self-assessment to my students for a few weeks. They filled it out and they were encouraged to make lifestyle changes, which is the second half of the survey that you should have. Once you find out your dominant nyepa, you can then look along in that column to see recommended lifestyle suggestions, which I think is a brilliant aspect of this survey instrument. So I encourage you to take a look at that at your own time to see what might be helpful for you. So I gave this assessment to my students, pretty diverse, largely female college students. And I asked them, how helpful was it for you to learn about your dominant nyepa? And they didn't get points for how they answered, but nobody said it wasn't helpful. Everyone said they found at least some benefit, and 76% said it was extremely helpful. And I asked them, how helpful was it to make lifestyle changes based on your nyepa? And over half said that it was extremely helpful. And again, nobody said it wasn't helpful. So I think this is beginning to show some of the potential value of Tibetan medicine, at least among our youth for today, who are establishing their health patterns in college. And so they're gaining insight into their nature and knowing how to balance it to maintain their health over the long term. Okay, so thank you. And that's the end for my presentation, and I wanted to turn it over to Dr. Tashi Dorjee.
Okay, hi everyone. Yeah, so Tibetan Medicine 101. So do you guys know what element constitutes Loong? Air. What elements constitutes Tripa? Fire. What element constitutes Pekin? Perfect. And the space is in all four. Okay, so before starting my talk, I want to just go over one of the holistic nature of Tibetan medicine is that our human body is also is made up of these 5 elements, right? And then the earth contributes towards the muscle, tissue, bone, nose, smell, water towards the blood, bodily fluid, tongue, taste, fire towards the body temperature, and so on, space towards. And then disorders are also caused because of the imbalances between these elements in our body, right? So you need to relate our body with these elements now. We're introducing, I think Jennifer has already introduced to that. So how do we balance those elements? There should be an excess of elements, or there can be a deficiency, or there can be a disturbed ones, right? So all the food quality, food or diet that you are having, these all have also a quality of these elements, right? That's why we are balancing those disturbed, excess, or deficiency. If there are excess, you need to stop. If there is a deficiency, you need to take more. If there is a disturb, then you need to balance it. Got it? And then it's all this. Remedies, medicines, and treatment are also in the form of 5 elements. So whatever we take, diet, medicine, herbs, they are also constituted those 5 elements. So that's the Tibetan medicine in our last that makes a big conclusion. So this is, I think, a very important concept in Tibetan medicine, or at least one of the holistic nature. There are another nature as well, like mind-body connection. Okay, so you all have been doing the self-assessment. So why it is important for knowing your basic constitution? So because in terms of health maintenance, to know what you're at risk for, I think Jennifer went over it, to know what kind of diet and lifestyle to adopt or avoid. So I'm going to go over it in detail. And the importance of digestive fire, medrod, and personalized treatment plan. Different treatment for different constitution, right? We all can have a headache, but it may manifest in different form, right? So according to your constitution. Loong constitution may have a headache that is manifested in like you are not able to sleep or something, and Tripa can have nausea and vomiting, something like that. Beginning headache can have like heaviness or something, right? So they can manifest in different form. So that's why we have a different treatment. Also disease manifestation. So some cancers are very aggressive, right? Some cancers are not. So maybe the Tripa and Loong cancers are more aggressive, while Pekin is more chronic in nature, something like that, right? So that's how constitution, knowing constitution is important. Okay, so in Tibetan medicine, we consider medrod or the digestive fire as very important to everybody because it has a connection with our health. So also we consider that a lot of the diseases are caused by the indigestion. So that's why. It's also, so Loong constitution, if you are in the Loong constitution, then you have unstable digestive fire. So you may have on and off both constitution and diarrhea. And Tripa constitution have a strong digestive fire, so they have more susceptible to diarrhea, so you can take less of the fiber. Pagan constitution, you have a weak digestive fire. That means you can have more of a fiber to release the constipation. And then I have the example. In Tibetan medicine, digestive fire is like a soil, where we get all the plants and crops, right? Even if your soil is not fertile, like in the sand, then even if you have a good water or sunlight, that crop is not going to grow well. right? It's not going to go harvest. So Tibetan medicine give an example of your digestive fire as a soil. So that's how you should take care of your digestive fire. And in the Western point of view, we can also relate it to the metabolism, right? And digestive fire, all the like cellular metabolism, cellular respiration, right down to the ATP, right? Every part of our body have a metabolism. So digestive fire doesn't only, as a grosser level, it might mean to your this digestive, but at the cellular level, we can go down to ATP level as well, right? So that's how it's very important in Tibetan medicine. Okay, so homeostasis. So when there is a homeostasis, disbalances among those elements, and it is maintained by, so there are several factors like seasonal factors, mental factors, and external factors also play a role, but largely what we have control over is diet and lifestyle, right? So, but seasonal, if you have a Loong nature, that you can move to another place where is a warmer place, but these are, we have a control over it. So right now the science of epigenetic is growing. Do you know what's the epigenetic? Is the epi means above the gene, right? So the diet and lifestyle can also influence how the genes are translated. We cannot change the DNA, but it influences how genes are translated, and you can pass that on to different generations. So it is growing a study, epigenetics. So that relates to diet and lifestyle. And okay, so I'm going to give you a very simple technique. So if you say there is a lot of foods and diets, right? There are thousands of diets, so you don't know what to take and what to not. So there's a simple trick. All diets we can categorize into 6 tastes, right? Do you agree with me? Actually, these tastes are a very important concept, you know. Science doesn't accept 6 tastes. Science has only 4 tastes: sweet, sour, bitter, and salty, right? You guys all know about that. And then science considers hot taste, or I mentioned here as a pungent taste, as a sensation. It's not a taste. But in Tibetan medicine, this pungent taste has a curative values. I think that is a very important concept in Tibetan medicine, that if you are interested in research, there's something to study too, right? And then there is the astringent taste. I think one Japanese scientist came up and he found out the taste called umami, you know, the taste of that MSG. So that is mostly similar to astringent taste. So that in Tibetan medicine, there are 6 tastes, and 6 tastes constitute all the diets. And then we can add up these 6 tastes, and we can balance our disturbed elements. And then 6 tastes can be also categorized into these elements. See, the earlier one, earth and water, it gives sweet, right? And then fire and earth gives sour. Water and fire to salty, and then earth and air bitter taste, fire plus air pungent, and earth and air astringent. So do you guys all know what the 6 tastes are? I think everybody should know sweet, sour, bitter, and salty, right? I think the astringent is a little bit tricky. So when I was in school, my teacher used to tell me, if you don't know the astringent taste, just taste the banana peel. Do you all guys know what taste is like the banana peel? If you taste that, that's the banana peel. Yeah, so yeah, just if you go to some shop and you just talk to your neighbors or your friends or relatives. All right, what taste do you think it is? And you compare it with your elements, and then you just whether I should have it or you can decide it, right? That's a trick. So you don't have to go about all the foods. Okay, so there is a diet recommendation for taste to adopt and avoid according to the three nyepas, right? If you have air, then you should air or Loong. Constitution, you can add up sweet, salty, and pungent. So Tripa, you can have more of sweet, bitter, astringent. Pege, you can have sour, salty, pungent. So the taste to avoid are bitter, astringent for the Loong, sour, salty for the Tripa, sweet, bitter, and astringent for the Pege. But there are some exception case, like salty taste. Usually, what is salty taste do? Salty taste is good for Pege and Loong, right? But salty taste in excess can produce Pege. That's exception. And there is another one exception. Pungent taste. What is pungent or I think hot is good for? Usually hot is good for Loong. And then what else? Pege. Hot is good for Loong, but if you consume it in excess, it can produce Loong. Okay? So there's some exception case. Okay, so and then we have three post-digestive effects of the 6 tastes. So these are the tastes. Sweet and salty has sweet post-digestive effect. Sweet have a sour post-digestive effect. Bitter, hot, and astringent have bitter post-digestive effect. But there is some exception, like honey. Okay, let's go there. Honey. Sweet taste is good for what? Actually good for Pege, right? But honey is good for, no, what? Sweet taste is not good for Pege here, right? But honey is good for Pege because due to its post-digestive effect, okay? And then like a gooseberry. Do you all know gooseberry is amla? Amla, what is sour taste? Sour taste is good for Tripa, right? In general. But here, due to the post-digestive effect, the amla helps Tripa. So there are some exceptions, okay? And then I think I don't have much time. So this so Loong aggravating diets that you should avoid, like strong tea, coffee, rice, cake. So even we have those all the genes and all the constitution. If they doesn't have any triggering point or aggravating thing, then it will not give us disease, right? That's why we need to avoid those aggravating factors. So for Loong, you guys need to be careful about drinking strong tea, coffee, rice cake, and pork. And Loong aggravating lifestyle, prolonged fasting, sleep deprivation, grave sensory overload, stress, exposure to cold, straining, stopping natural urge. So if you have a gas, you need to let it go. Okay, you don't need to stop it. So there's a natural urge. Okay, so Tripa aggravating diet. So these are the diet that can aggravate Tripa. So Tripa nature, you can avoid those. If you are combined, then you can combine those. If you are dual nature, you can do. So you just apply this. Alcohol, pepper. Okay, anger, Tripa aggravating. Overexposure to heat, physical exertion, trauma. Pege aggravating diet. So raw and unripe fruits and vegetables, undercooked, burned and stale fatty foods. Pege aggravating lifestyle, overeating, physical inactivity, overexposure to cold, daytime sleeping. Now we come to the treatment. Food from warm region, sweet, healthy, unsaturated fat, nutritious and cooked. So usually bone broths are good. Molasses, raw candy, garlic, onion, butter oil, nutmeg, warm milk, wine. Sounds familiar? Right? Do you guys know all those diets? Familiar? Okay, Loong lifestyle treatment. Live in a warm region, peaceful, calm environment, enjoy company of close and dear friends and relatives, regular sleep, regular routine, frequent warm bath, reduce emotional stress, pleasant music, regular warm oil massage, reduce desire, gratitude for what you have. Yeah, actually what I forgot. So these elements are also related to some emotion. I think Jennifer talked about it, right? So Loong is related to what emotion? Desire, right? If you have a excessive desire, then it can turn into attachment. And Tripa is related to which emotion? Anger. And it can also, excessive can lead to hatred. And then Pagan is related to which emotion? Do you guys know? Confusion. If you're a Pagan constitution, you might be very confused right now. Is it true? No? Then you might not be Pagan. You might be dual nature. Okay. Jokes apart. Okay, so there's a Tripa treatment, right? So Tripa has a warming nature, right? It's a fire nature. So we should consume cool nature, fresh, light and raw. So yogurt and butter, milk, fresh butter, fresh goat meat, soup from barley, stew, camphor, and saffron. And then Tripa lifestyle, places with cool and clean, location with waterfall, avoid hot places, hot bath and saunas, avoid physical stress, avoid sunbathing, encourage cold shower and swimming, stay in cool and seaside areas, physical and mental rest without disturbance. Just like she's staying there. Okay, Pagan treatment. So Pagan is earth and water, so you need to take less of those elements. So chicken, turkey, there's a light, white fish, oatmeal, light beans with the chickpeas, black eye peas, black pepper, cardamom, cinnamon, cumin, sea salt, pomegranate, and ginger tea. Pagan lifestyle, stay in a dry, warm climate, active lifestyle, avoid midday nap, avoid moist, cold, moldy condition, drink warm boiled water before each meal. Actually, they have done a study, and drinking water before a meal helps you to also eat less, and you can. It is helpful in reducing weight as well, right? Warm clothing, layers, regular exercise, short work, yoga. Okay, so personalized approach. So I chose this topic, diabetes mellitus. So in Tibetan medicine, if someone has it is basically we consider it due to the indigestion, and then we have 3 types. Usually it's associated with Pagan. So they have a different symptom here, right? If you have a Loong associated diabetes, then you have those symptoms: heart palpitation, decreased sleep, breathing difficulty, shivering, general body cramp, craving for food, and then 4 different urine characteristics. Actually, Tibetan medicine talk about there are like 20 different characteristics of the diabetes, and then 4 of them are in Loong, and 6 in the Tripa, and Pagan has 10 different characteristics of urine. And Tripa associated diabetes mellitus shows this symptom: the pain and palpitation, dry mouth, increased by diarrhea, susceptible to cold, flu, 6 different. Okay, I already went. And Pagan, indigestion, loss of appetite, increased sleep, increased mucus, vomiting. And we have a different approach, right? Okay. So this is the personalized approach. If you're more Loong associated, the lifestyle and diet, moderate use of oily and nutritious diet, avoid strong coffee, tea, and then all stimulants. If you have a Tripa associated diabetes, strictly avoid alcoholic drinks, reduce anger, spicy foods and fatty food should be reduced, more vegetables and cooling. Pagan, you should have frequent meals, but avoid large meals at one time. And you should have warm foods and warm spices. Okay, so we also take like diet and herbs into their potency. Not only the taste, but taste takes priority, okay? Taste is the main. So in some cases, these salty, astringent, and sweet have a successively heavier taste. Salty, has a low potency of heavy, and ascendens has a moderate potency of heavy, like high potency, sweet has a heaviest one. Okay, so likewise all of them. So in Tibetan medicine, formulation and compounding of Tibetan medicine are done considering the taste, potency, and post-digestive effect of the ingredient used. Actually, there is an individual potency, like when we combine them, it is just to reduce the side effect of another one. So that's why we are using multiple ingredients. If it has an individual potency, it's a very strong potency. Okay, so these are the potencies to adopt, but as I said, taste takes priority. Okay, so I just wanted to give you an idea. So Loong, you can adopt heavy and oily. Tripa, adopt cool and blunt. Pagan, you can adopt light and rough. Okay, so there is a exception. Milk have heavy and oily potency that reduces Loong, right? And then pork, actually pork is not good for the Loong. Why? Because you would think that pork is good for Loong, right? But because pork, due to its cool and light potency, it increases Loong. That's why it's not good. But there is a exception to some of those. So this is a book recommendation if you are beginners. This is published by Menpa, Tibetan Fundamentals of Tibetan. I think they are slow translated to Chinese medicine. That's it. Thank you, everyone.